I have prepped the ingredients to make, I'm going to call these my Halloween boo rolls. And I'm actually going to put them in little loaf pans here. And then I had this rectangular stoneware and I thought, I'm going to try them. We're going to make like a rectangular bread. But I have not only my ingredients all out, but I have my tools assembled, as you can see here. And I have a few little shortcuts that I want to share with you. One is I have my cocoa, my salt, and my sugar all in one bowl. I hate to have an extra bowl to wash, especially little bowls. They're almost more annoying, but I love my bowls. And with my honey and my orange juice, I combined those because I needed a third cup of each, so it was easy to go 1/3 up to 2/3. And then I knew that I had the same amount of both. I have measured out my white bread flour. I am going to put all of that in initially, and then I will add more flour, and I'll use the whole wheat for that. I just have freshly ground whole wheat flour here. And then I've got my yeast that's just ready to jump in and swim. And you might hear my water in the background because last thing I do after I prep everything is I get my water ready. And I make sure I have my thermometer to measure the temperature so that it's just the perfect temperature for the yeast to thrive. And now we'll get started. I love how my instant read thermometer is just doing a little dance here. So I'm going to stop it and see where we're at. I want it to be 115 to 120. And I think that's about what my water heater is set on because that's about as hot as I can get. And I want to hurry and get that right into my bowl here. I always put my wet ingredients first because you need all these wet ingredients. I'm going to do that. Notice I don't proof any yeast. I'm going to put in now the liquids. And so here we have, this is going to be an experiment for me because I have the honey in the bottom and I don't know how fast that's going to come out. I'm going to have to wipe that out, I think, with my spatula. So I'm going to do that. I love a spatula, so I got all the honey out right here. Now we're going to add in the butter. I love this recipe. It doesn't call for any oils. And so just butter, but cut into 6 pieces, so that does help it while we're mixing it up. In fact, I'm going to start mixing this up. This is the combination of the salt, the sugar, and the cocoa. And I like to have those mixed up before I put in the yeast. Because once I put in the yeast, then I'm going to start putting in the flour. Now this is going to be, I'm upping the yeast on this from what the original recipe called for. Before I add the yeast, I just noticed I've got this little bit right here of cocoa that just wanted to stay on my little post here. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to add the yeast. To make sure the yeast is all the way incorporated into my mixture. So I'm going to give it a minute to play on the playground. You'll see it, in this case, you can see it easier with the cocoa mixture. It's going to be along the wall. Alright, so let's go ahead and start adding in our flour. Now I don't add all the flour in that butter, by the way, will start melting in there. You'll notice I have a formula in my bread making digest where I tell you how much flour at a time. But I know I'm going to need all this white flour in the recipe, so I'm just going to go ahead. That's 2 1/4 cups. And I want to do it kind of slowly. I don't want to have a shower, a flour shower. It almost smells like brownies, and it almost looks like brownie dough, doesn't it? Next is going to be the whole wheat flour. That is going to be the last ingredient, but I always look at my recipe and I'm just going to check this off. I did put in the water, the orange juice, the butter, the honey, the flour, salt, sugar, cocoa, and yeast. Okay, I just do a little check off all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and add, because it's 2 1/4 cups of whole wheat flour, I'm just going to put the 1/4 cup in because I know we're going to need that much. But then the next thing is I'm going to not necessarily dump the whole other 2 cups of flour in. Now this is more of a sweet kind of a bread dough. It's not like your typical bread that, you know, you're going to make from sandwiches. So it might be a little stickier. But I don't want to add more, but I might need a little more. So let's just try and see how much we need. And now I'll begin to add I wanted to get all the way incorporated before I add more flour. So I pick up my speed here in the mixer. The main reason we have dense bread is from adding too much flour. So we don't want to add too much flour. You can tell it's starting to pull away from the sides of the bowl. So I just sprinkle. This is where I do my sprinkling. And if I do need a little more flour, I'm probably going to add the white flour. White flour's got to have more gluten in it. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. How it's starting to pull away. Can you see that? That means it's getting to be really good. That's why I have my, look at that. And it's just pulled away so nicely. Oh my goodness, look at that. Okay, now we have a couple of tests with the bread making digest, but it might be a little different with this. But this is great because when I touch it, it's not sticky. It's tacky, but it's not sticky. Okay, so we don't want it to be gooey like glue. So that's the sticky part. But we want it to be that's kind of like tacky like tape. So I'm going to go ahead and start kneading this. And I'll probably knead it for about 3 minutes with my machine. And I might have to add a little more flour. This is the remaining of the 2 1/4 cups. And just like if you hand kneaded something often, you're adding more flour as the flour is more incorporated into your dough. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start the kneading process. I love my mixer that has the center post because I want my dough to be pulling away not only from the sides of the bowl, but also from the center post. See that? You can really tell. Now, I keep watching this because, first of all, if you walk away from your mixer, it could walk right off the countertop. Oh my gosh, look at that. See how my dough is so clean. But sometimes as it kneads, it gets a little stickier again. Look at that. Oh my goodness. I like to record my entire kneading process because sometimes this is where things start going awry. See how they're on that post? It's just so clean. Oh, I could not get this if I were hand kneading. And the recipe just says to hand knead or machine knead until you have a soft dough, which is usually like 8 to 10 minutes. And with my kitchen machine here, I usually can cut that time in half. And that's to save on my hands. So I just love this, the way it's just pulling right away. So you want to be watching. Now, if I weren't recording this, I'd also be making sure my pans were all ready. But I already did that. Look at that. Oh, this is really perfect dough. It's kind of sticking to the sides, just a tiny, tiny bit. I'm going to add a tiny, tiny bit of flour, just a tiny, tiny bit. I don't want to lose that clean bowl and the clean post. And you can see on one side over here, it's kind of sticking. I don't want it to stick. nudge here. We've been kneading for 2 minutes. Remember the saying, the stickier the dough, the lighter the roll. So we don't want it to be as dense as a regular loaf of bread. We want these rolls to be nice. When you test to see if you've kneaded it enough, I call it the tickle test. I'm going to tickle this bread by just touching it and see how it bounces right back. Almost like a kid on a trampoline. So I'm going to call that good. Now this is perfect. This has been perfectly kneaded. I have the perfect amount of flour in it. And I know that because my bowl is clean. My center post is very clean as well. Now that my dough is kneaded, I want to make sure that I have a clean surface to roll out the dough, or the bread, whichever it is, or the rolls. And so I just let that sit here for just a minute while I get this cleaned up right here. And then I'm also going to go to my oven and I just turn it on my warm temperature. Now this is not to prepare my oven for baking. It's to prepare the oven to be a safe place for the dough to rise without any drafts. And it is just going to be on warm. Oh, you know what? I got to do this. I have to hit warm and I have to hit start. Yeah, there was it. Okay. I really don't want it to be more than 100 degrees. It takes my oven not very long to get to about 100. And then I'll turn it off. All right, I have the dough in the little pans. Now, in this particular case, these are more like rolls, but I wanted them to have something to hold them in shape. And I think if I just put them on a baking sheet, that would be fine too. I'm not planning for them to like rise above the pan like I normally would if it was a regular, like a loaf of bread. But these are more like rolls. So again, I'm just putting them in these little pans because I want them to maintain their shape. And then I have this little square one. I'm going to be really interested to see how this one bakes up. So I've now formed them into the little rolls / loaves. And I'm going to put them in my oven, not to bake, but just to rise. And it usually takes about 20 minutes. It might be a little bit longer with cocoa in the mix.